Know what you want, build the plan around it, and check in every once in a while. I have a lot of clients that planning towards financial independence, retire early. If you don't have the person that you intimately trust to help you see the logic or see the big picture or explain things to you in a way that you understand, you're going to be very, very scared.
Welcome to the Mindful Money Mom. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Justine Zavitz. She is a certified planner. Welcome, Justine.
Thank you so much, Nazreen. I'm so glad to be here.
And you are kicking off a brand new segment, and I'm calling it Mindful Speakers, because we're here to help people with complicated matters, just to maybe try to simplify it a little bit.
Well, thanks for having me on as your first person.
How did you get started in financial planning, and what is a financial plan?
Great question. I don't think anyone ever grows up as a child thinking, I'm going to be a financial planner when I grow up. Total fluke. My mom has been in the insurance industry for years, all through my childhood. And in fact, I always looked at her and thought, I'm never going to be in that business because it seems a little too much for me. You're always on the phone. You never stop talking. You never stop working. But my whole life, I've always been a very social person. My teachers in my report cards always said, Justine's a good student, but she never stops talking. And I was always very inclined on the business and math side of things. So that was my wheelhouse. And so I went to university, got my commerce degree, and I got out of university and was working as a bartender, and I was really good at that too because I'm very social. And one night, as we're cleaning up the bar at the end of the night, my manager was just like, I don't understand why you wouldn't go give your mom's business a try. It's a really good business. And it's a great opportunity. And you're 24 years old. So you either love it and you have this amazing opportunity, or you hate it and you're 24 years old. So you carry on, you figure something else out. That really resonated with me. And I went home that night. And I guess it was really early the next morning because it was like 3 a.m. But after some sleep, I woke up and I went to my mom and said, I think I want to try out this business, which, she almost fell on the floor when I said it. But she did say after that, hey, you got to go to Fanshawe College and get your financial planning services diploma. And while I was there, I was working in her company part-time, kind of learning the ropes. That's how I got started. And the rest is history. And I've been here ever since. And I now own more of the company than she does.
Is that all you did in 16 years? And of course, you had a couple of kids because, hey, why not? You had a couple of spare minutes, right?
You got to add some adventure to life,
Tell me, how has motherhood been for you?
It's been mostly awesome. It's quite a roller coaster ride, right? When you think like, oh, my kids are amazing and I think I'm doing okay at this, then they turn on you and then you're like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore and I'm completely lost. You have to be an organized human, and I am not known to be an organized human. But I love when I take what I do, and motherhood is I have a lot of flexibility in my job. I kind of make up my hours as I go. I do work a lot because I can, maybe block off from 4 to 6 and then chat with someone at 7 o'clock or whatever is needed to be able to be there for the dinners and, take them to gymnastics or whatever. But also, I hire a lot of help. I don't think we could do it without the help. My husband's also a self-employed professional. So
good for you. Well, I always tell people that you can take my 4 languages, you can take my master's degree, you can take all my time in the bank, real estate, handling multi-million-dollar deals. And it took 4 girls to bring me to my knees and strip me of all patience. And yet I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, they help you grow in ways you never even knew it was possible. Exactly. And one of the reasons that I had decided to do this channel was to communicate back to people to say, you know what, things are going to get easier. Life is complicated. And I understand that, but it doesn't mean that we can't simplify it. And honestly, feel in our soul, we're seeking that. We've attained the accolades, we've attained the achievements. And now we're like, what do we really want out of our lives? I think what you do is extremely important. So when it comes to financial planning, what is it?
Yeah, great question. So financial planning, it's different for everybody. It can be a really big, comprehensive plan. We see people come in and they have these 50-page documents that someone put together for them that, pile up some dust because you never really reflect back on it.
Yeah.
But really what it is it's understanding the resources that you have coming in, what you want for your future, whether that's 6 months out, 3 years out, or 30 years out. What is it that you want in these various time frames? And how are we going to organize these resources to help you get there?
What do you think people fear the most in even discussing it? I've been very surprised in starting this channel when I have these discussions offline. People are really hesitant. There seems to be this deep subconscious fear of either money or money management, and especially in women. Where do you think that comes from?
I think there's a couple of things. It's always fear around something that you don't understand. Feel like maybe if I don't understand it enough and I'm not talking to the right person about it, I'm not going to know the right questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And money is something that's very hard to part ways with, right? It's a pretty precious resource that helps you keep life going. And if you're working with the wrong people on it because you don't know the right questions to ask, you're parting ways with your money and you don't know if it's in the right hands. And I reflect a lot on healthcare. So my husband's a doctor, so I have this wonderful resource available to me that I get to tap into anytime I'm like, I don't understand any of this stuff. But, I think about COVID, for example, and when COVID struck, I was like, oh my gosh, we can't leave our house because it's floating in the air. There's droplets everywhere, right? Like, what I'd do is go for a walk and my kids would touch like the fence and I'd be like, no. And if I didn't have him to say, think about it this way, like, let's think about the logic here and understand the risks associated, I would have been in my house, not around any people for God knows how long. Same thing with money,
Yes.
If you don't have the person that you intimately trust to help you see the logic or see the big picture or explain things to you in a way that you understand, you're going to be very, very scared
So
to
true.
work with somebody on those things. And so I think, not everyone has a doctor living in their house, much the same way not everyone has a financial planner living in their house.
Just because you have not been recipient in financial literacy doesn't mean it's not out there, but I do feel it's very subconscious. Conscious says, I'm going to get on top of my spending. I'm going to get on top of my, I am going to get me in retirement. I got you. And then there's a disconnection.
Yeah. Consciously, people want that. And subconsciously, I think another fear is they don't want to be told they can't spend their money and do the fun things that they want to do.
Let me know your thoughts on budgeting. I don't believe in it. I think budgeting is might as well tell someone to not eat a cookie and all they want is a cookie, even if they've never had a cookie. Mindful spending, it's real. And it's not just about saving. How do you deal with those uncertainties of subconscious belief? Because if they don't take that step of seeing you, they're already at a disadvantage.
First of all, I'm a very open book. So I have no problem telling people like, yeah, I save just the right amount of money. And I gladly spend the rest because I love treating myself. I love treating my kids. I love vacations, so all the things that I want, I'm making happen. But I also feel so comfortable that my savings are happening at the same time, right? So I know the two things are happening. And so I don't feel any guilt about it. And so when you're able to share with people, I'm not here to put you on a budget. I'm not on a budget. Why would I put you on a budget? That doesn't seem right. All I'm here to do is help paint the picture for you.
So what are 3 of the most successful tips you've communicated to people with that particular mindset that's helped them achieve their financial freedom, especially in uncertain times of today? If you like this episode so far, please take a second to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell notification and share with a friend.
I would say the best thing to do is to have a plan. Like that's the best starting point. Have a plan, because when you have the plan, it's not that you're supposed to follow it at 100%. It's just the same way as like when you join Weight Watchers, for example, you're not supposed to follow it at 100%. They give you all these flex points over here to make sure that like when you need to treat yourself, you treat yourself. Progress, not perfection. That's what I love, right? Progress. And at least start to tuck things away. We call it paying yourself first. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When you pay yourself first and you know that when that paycheck hits your bank account, $100 or $1,000 or however much money needs to be going away is going away, but it's leaving enough here to not restrict you. That's great. So have the plan, pay yourself first. And then my last part, instead of a budget, I always call it cash flow management, because that's really, I don't care where the money's going. You just need to make sure that you know where it's going, kind of. You always have fixed expenses, whether that's a mortgage or rent or, your car insurance, your home insurance. All these things are every month usually the same, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have a variable mortgage rate, which then had some changes happening.
Just a little bit.
Just a little. But that's where the plan's not static. We got to come back to it. But you've got your fixed expenses and you've got your variable expenses.
Yeah.
And some of the variable expenses are necessities like food, right? You don't spend the same amount on food every single month. or gas. Some of these are necessities variables and some of these are wants variables.
That's right.
So when you understand, I have this much money coming in, this much is going to my fixed, this much is going to my necessity variables, and I have this much to play with, and you know that you've already paid yourself first, then you can sit there and say, okay, I got $1,000 every month to just do whatever I want with. If you go out and buy a $1,000 pair of shoes, then you know that that's your wants looked after, and you don't get any more that month. But you have that confidence in buying $1,000 pair of shoes, if that's what you want.
And I've been trying to communicate to people, if you attach your spending to your values, you remove the guilt that sometimes is associated. And what I mean by that is, so I grew up traveling. So for me, one value is experience-based. If my brain isn't learning something new, if I'm not getting out of my comfort zone, so my spending naturally goes there. But it's also a discussion to be had with my partner because if his values are different than mine. But I think people think of it so technically. And even you and I as professionals, I mean, I have an MBA and it wasn't until probably 3 years ago that I took control of my own investments. And I still have some with professionals, of course. But you are taught, you know what, you're busy. You just go make your money. It's way too complicated. Let me do it. And I don't think it's right because it exasperates what people's subconscious fears are.
I think people need to understand what their options are, right? So you said, I have some money with professionals and I handle some of my own myself. Some people don't even know you can handle your own yourself, or some people don't know that you can have 4 different RRSP accounts with different professionals and some managed on your own, as long as that, you're not maxing out amongst the 4 your contribution room. So, I think that even that knowledge is really important for people to have. And what are the pros and the cons?
From your experience, what mindsets have you seen that have led to a more fulfilling life?
It's a great question. I think that a lot of people, they think that if they only had the money, they would be happy, right? And I watched a really powerful TED Talk one time that says, you know what, it's not whether it's money or if I only had this or if I only had that, I'd be happy. I'd be happy, and then these things start coming. So again, I don't know if I've said this already, but if you have a plan, you have confidence that things are happening for you, that you're doing the right things and you're taking the right steps. That confidence is giving you that happy factor because you're not feeling guilty every time you spend money on something because you're allowed to. That happy factor is bringing about, this powerful, I don't know if you want to call it karma, I don't know, but things start happening when you're happy. People are drawn to you. Find the happy factor and then things will start coming to you.
Do people come to you with the plan when SHIT has hit the fan?
It's so interesting is no matter how many times you tell someone, like, you don't know, because no one ever plans to get disabled, but if it happens, you want to make sure that you're properly protected. And the amount of times that someone calls me and says, I'm not working anymore. What am I going to get paid? And you're like, you're going to get $2,000 a month. And they're like, God, but I make $20,000 a month. Now what am I going to do? No, it's kind of too late for that. I want to help you and I'm going to definitely work through something with you, but I can't fix this situation now because it's kind of too late. And that's, one of the worst case scenarios. People will put a deposit down to buy a home and then the home gets built and then all of a sudden they're trying to get a mortgage and they're like, oh God, mortgage rates weren't what they once were. And I really overextended on building the home in the first place. And you're like, gosh, this is all stuff that you need to plan for in advance so that we think about these what if scenarios and you kind of understand where you might stretch yourself and what kind of risks you're taking on. Again, at the end of the day, these are your decisions to make. If you want to take on that risk, you take on that risk, but you're doing so fully informed.
If there's anything anyone gets from this podcast, it's wanting a financial plan, I think, is the hardest step. Just make an appointment. Reach out to someone, talk to your friends and say, hey, who would you reach out to? And just say, look, I know nothing. And then go from there. So financial plan, think of the what ifs, plan for them, and then you never have to worry about them and gain the expertise from a professional. Connect, move on. Most of your clients, what age group would they say? And are you noticing younger who are making a lot more money than, say, we did when we were in our 20s? Because there's no better time to live than today with all the opportunities there are. And do you see a shift in the mindset between the different age groups?
I do. I have 25-year-olds and I have 85-year-olds. I would say the bulk of my clients live in the 30 to 50 range. And yes, I do find that younger people want plans more.
Interesting.
They want to take that step. They want to understand. They want to be educated. And it is an education process. It's not a like shoving product down your throat process. It's let's educate you on like work together. You don't know what you don't know. And I think there's a lot of DIY culture out there, doing your own taxes and so on. There's you don't know what you don't know, and that's always the biggest risk when you try to do it yourself. And I mean, just like how you can Google your medical symptoms and it almost inevitably comes up that you have cancer.
The rabbit hole.
Right? You don't like you can go on Reddit and like you can find any answer you want on there.
True.
So
it ends up being extremes, right? You have your do-it-yourselfers who get the blinders on. Also, I've seen others in all the different businesses and all the different occupations that I've had where they'll throw everything at you and they go, 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 go. And I'm like, but it's really important that you have a basis of knowledge. And they're like, no, I trust you implicitly. Then I go, but why?
Why would you do this?
Why would you do that? I mean, I'm very trustworthy and I know you're extremely genuine. And this is what makes you amazing at what you do. But it just breaks my heart when people have such fear for the one thing that they are trading their life for, that being their job and income. And even when it comes to spending, I always tell people, listen, how many hours of your life did that purse cost? And is it worth it? And if you say yes, good on you, but be conscious and aware. To shift things a little bit, how do you teach money to kids? Financial literacy?
I find that really hard. My children are 8 and 5. I'm also blessed with only girls in my life, so I understand where you're coming from. My biggest, I don't know that there's a right way to do it. That's what I'm going to start with. I don't know that there's a right way to do it. I think that communication about money is huge. I think as parents, we're really cautious to say how much money we earn. And I agree that we probably shouldn't tell our kids that. We're probably going to go tell their friends on the playground or something like that. But it's helpful for them to understand the role that money and work and everything plays in life. And for me, a lot of this was based around during the pandemic. We live close to downtown London, and there's, London's seen a lot of homelessness, unfortunately.
Yes, it has.
Really ramped up. And so we'd go on walks and we'd be walking through downtown, and there'd be a lot of people sleeping in the parks and on the, in the schoolyards. And the kids would ask me about it, why are those people sleeping outside? And
they're camping, honey, up until they're 6 years old. Then you can't get away with that answer.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, and do I want to tell them they're camping? Or do I want to just tell them, like, we don't know how they ended up here. Who knows? But at the end of the day, whatever's happened in their life, they don't have the resources to have a home at this point in time, right? And so having a home costs money, and they don't have the resources to be able to feed themselves necessarily.
Do you define to your kids the differences between needs and wants?
I do, yeah. I mean, I try. They'll try to argue with me about why they need to have the new OMG doll or whatever those things are.
Oh,
like the new version of a Barbie, except just take it up a few notches. So, they need this, they need that. No, you need food, you need water, you need home, and you want an OMG doll to play with.
I find with kids, at least with mine, it was very helpful to give them a baseline. And what I mean by that, so for the twins, for their 5th birthday, they pooled their money together. We went to Walmart, we went shopping. They had $120. They found the bike. They said, can we take it home? I said, of course not. We're shopping. Went home, searched for it online, found it $20 cheaper. I took the 120, gave them back 20. Of course, they were shocked that they kept money. And I had them install it with their father. So that was an added skill. But ever since then, now we say, oh, do you want X, Y, and Z? Well, that would be 2 bikes, 5 bikes. Do you find that is helpful for children?
Yes, absolutely. Especially at the age of 5. My oldest being 8 now, they actually start learning a little bit about, I don't want to say about money, but they learn like a loonie is $1 or, a quarter is 25 cents. And it's more to teach them things like fractions.
Yes.
Stuff, I think.
And they're sharp.
But it's at least a starting point where you can say, well, this, you've got $10 in your wallet. So that's going to get you not even half of an OMG doll. So if you want the OMG doll, you need another $20. So it's, a good way to teach them math, but also about money. My oldest, she's an animal lover. So she always wants animals. So for her birthday, she wanted guinea pigs, which she got. But then now she wants a snake. And so, well, you don't have a birthday coming up. Well, what, the Easter bunny, you might bring me a snake. I'm like, no, because snakes eat bunnies. So you're not getting the Easter
Oh,
bunny, not bringing you snakes.
so it's taking the life examples and making it as relevant as
Yeah.
possible
But it's like,
without.
you can't just expect someone to give you a snake. That's a really big present. So you're going to have to save up your money for it. And so, we created a plan. If
Wonderful.
you clean out mommy's car, it's mildly selfish. If you clean mommy's car, you get $10. If you take out the garbage, you get $2. If
That's right.
you clean up the dog poo in the backyard, then you get $10 if there's a lot because it's spring. If you do that, so we created this plan and now she knows there's dollar signs attached to each, and we have to try to add up to a snake cost somewhere around $100.
And psychologically, she's understanding that a certain amount of effort exuded gives a certain result. And I think what you're also doing is you're helping her one day realize, wait a minute, I can clean a car and get $10, or I can go to school and become a professional and get, $1,000 an hour. Okay, I actually would rather B than A, or A than B. That's fine. But I think psychologically, you're helping them build that connection, as opposed to say, it's just a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because she also said she wanted, oh God, I can't even remember what it was, something, stupid at Mastermind that she saw. And I said, well, I'm not buying that for you, but you can see we have in your piggy bank from balances and so on. And you can, if you want to buy it for yourself, you can buy it for yourself. So she went home and she looked at what she had in her piggy bank and she had enough money for it. And I said, okay, but you have to think about this. This
So
is,
limitations.
yeah, this is 10 weeks of allowances. 10 weeks is, by the time you hit 10 weeks again, it's going to be September, whatever, month it was at the time. And so think about that, because if you spend all this money now, then you have nothing. And so you turn around tomorrow and there's the next thing that you decide, oh my gosh, no, I actually wanted that instead.
Got it.
You have to wait 10 weeks of saving every penny.
Kids don't know patience, and you're exactly teaching them both patience and impulse control and cause and effect. Earlier, you mentioned COVID. How did that change financial planning for you? Have you found yourself needing to kind of become more of a psychologist and a therapist than a financial planner?
A couple things. Yeah, I actually think that I always was somewhat of a psychologist and therapist, because you work with couples and you brought up maybe your husband's values don't align with yours and where money goes. Well, that happens a lot.
But you don't even know they don't align unless you ask the question.
Yeah, exactly. I've worked through those conversations quite a lot because, so-and-so may say, well, my mom's probably going to end up moving in with us. And the spouse is going, no, she's not. Or like, we're going to have to pay for my mom to go into a home. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
And then you're like, okay, well, let's talk about this a little bit more. Maybe we can find a happy medium by creating this plan, by seeing how this may or may not impact your life, by having mom live with you, or having mom in paying for their home care, whatever it is. So you do have that role all the time. I mean, unfortunately, there have been a lot of divorces since the pandemic, and that's always a big financial planning matter. But that aside, so financial planning tips: don't get divorced; it's very expensive. Marriage counseling, way cheaper. Do that for as long as you can until you can't take it anymore.
So you're finding people's patients, things that they haven't talked about has not come to surface, but they're not necessarily emotionally ready to discuss it. That's kind of what you've seen in the last couple of years?
I think people would just wake up and be like, man, we've had to spend a lot of time together and I'm realizing I am just not loving it. So I don't know what it is. I mean, everyone's got a different story, but there are more divorces for sure. I think that with financial planning with COVID, there's been a couple of things. First of all, for people my age, for example, I have, ever since I started earning money, for the most part, inflation's been at about 1.5% to 2.5%. Interest rates have been dirt cheap, and the markets have been on fire.
Yeah.
So every dollar I'd save was earning money, no question. COVID brought about a lot of government spending, and a lot of people didn't have anywhere to go and spend money. So they amassed a lot of savings. So there's all these savings, these awesome investment returns and everything else happening. Low inflation, low interest rate, people buy houses, people go out and get pets, and they do this and they do that.
And the pools and
pools and everything. And now what's happening is they're like, oh my gosh, this pet's costing me more and more and more money because inflation is driving up the cost of dog food and whatever else. We want to go on this trip. We've always planned this trip, and now we're finally going to be able to go on it. Well, now it's like double the cost to go on this
Yes.
trip.
So how do you in the financial plan bring the strategic and the contingency factor when you're, let's say my husband and I come to you, we have 4 kids, he's a professional, I'm a professional. What are some items that you bring to our attention that maybe we have to go home, think about it, and come back to you?
Sometimes it's a new reality check. Like, you can go on this vacation this year, but you're going to give up over here. You're going to give something up over here. Maybe you're only going on vacations every 2 years now until things come back in line.
So it's not forever.
Yeah. And so that what I tell every single person, the most important thing is when you get a financial plan, it's your plan for now, but it's not your plan forever.
Beautifully said.
Right? You don't, it's a living, breathing document. We can't anticipate what inflation is going to do, what the government of the day is going to do with tax rates, what investment markets are going to do. We can't predict any of that stuff. Everything that goes into, we don't know if you're going to change your jobs, if you're going to get fired, if you're going to get promoted. We don't know these things. So we don't know if you're going to stay healthy. We don't know these things. So everything that goes into a plan is an assumption. And I tell every client, especially the younger they are, I know this plan says that you'll have no problem retiring at 60 if you want to, but I can guarantee you that I've gotten a lot of things wrong in here in the meantime, and your life is going to change. So the most important thing you can do is come back to that plan every year or two and just make sure. We're just going to see where you're at. And if you've fallen off track, it doesn't mean that you've done it wrong. It just means we've made wrong assumptions and we need to readjust, and we need to see if there's anything we need to be changing in there.
I love that.
Because people think we're going to put you on a leash and tell you can't do all sorts of stuff. And I am not that person. I will not be your accountability person, but I will.
I am not your mother.
I'm not your mother. Yeah, I'm someone else's mom. It's exhausting sometimes. So I only want 2. That's
to
it.
your point. I find a financial plan is like planning a vacation. You were saying, I'm going to go on an airplane and I'm going to fly, but you've never bought a ticket. And that's a perfect analogy for it. It's like, buy the ticket. You don't have to know how the ticket works. You don't have to know how the printer that printed the ticket work. You don't have to know how they scheduled the plane and where it goes. Yes, you may have delays. You may have to change gates, but buy the ticket.
Who knows?
Buy the ticket. See, Justine.
Buy the ticket. I know that's the biggest part. It's actually just taking the first step. And I mean, it doesn't matter what it is in life that you need to take the first step on.
There's, I believe, 7 psychologies to investing, which kind of surprised me, to tell you the truth, because you don't think about it. Are you aware of those different 7 psychologies? Do you apply it to different peoples and personalities, or do you look at it more a case base or temperament based?
I think like everyone's different. Part of your job as a planner is not to impose your beliefs and your feelings on other people. Part of your job is to understand what's important to those people and what their values are. And that comes down to, you can get the sense of the person who says, like, every time you talk to them, well, I wanted to make this happen, but I just wasn't able because this came up and that came up and this came up and that came up, and I ended up taking all these paths. And, sometimes you have to call them on it and say, okay, listen, that's fine, but I just don't want you to think that there's ever a year where these things aren't coming up. So perhaps we have to change our thought processes and our mindset around what it is you're actually going to be able to save, when it is you might be able to buy that house that you want to buy, because these things are always going to come up, right? So it's not just a this year thing and it's going to happen next year. And let's just plan for it, because you are a person who, have opportunity knocks on a trip to Spain, you're going to go. So do it. But this is just who you are. And now we have to change our mindset around what's going to be possible in the future for you. And it's not a wrong thing. So I think, as a planner, there is a lot of behavioral and emotional aspects to money, to saving, to investing, and reaching these goals. And some people want to live like a student their whole life, so they have the freedom of choice to retire at 45. And some people want to live in the moment. And so that choice is going to cause them to work until they're 70. As long as we kind of know what our expectations are, there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone's different.
I love that. Mindfulness has been a newer introduction for me. And to keep things very real, it really is something that I started to pursue first with my children, because I noticed the emotional regulation. I had my youngest, I had 4 under 4. But I remember going through, postpartum, going through mom rage. And I got to the point where, like, this is not where I want to be. So I'm curious, have you been introduced to the idea of mindfulness? Maybe not called that way, but have you seen mindfulness in your daily living to bring you the balance and also in your professional life?
100%. My oldest probably got me more into it. And it was mostly because of what you just described, the emotional regulation of children. She is a very dramatic, she feels emotion I ever known. Okay. Even my youngest, I'm like, you seem to have this down pat. Oldest, I'm like, oh, Nelly. So at bed, I said to my husband, I was like, God, I think she has like some significant anxiety or something. I never want to label like a 6-year-old with this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
she really needs some help coming out of her head.
It's real.
You talk about your brain being powerful, and I talk to her about this all the time. If you listen to your brain all the time, your body is going to feel this way. But if you take control of your brain and you start to change the messaging that's happening in there, I mean, for a 7-year-old, it's not really, it'll resonate one day. But anyway, mindfulness is where we came to. I said, so I have I'm a Peloton app person.
Yeah.
And Peloton has some great 5 and 10-minute meditations to do with your kids.
Absolutely.
And it's bringing yourself in the moment. And I always work with a business coach, and I always work with someone different, whether it's like, how do I grow the business and create the strategic plan of the organization?
Good for you.
Meetings with clients, how to get the best out of them and the best out of me. Well, my coach that I'm working with right now is actually trying to help me with my mindset and my mindfulness and being present in meetings and being engaging, or not even being engaging, but just, really focusing in, and it's the mental performance that she's working on with me.
Society lately has been exuding this almost toxic positivity. And I've kind of had enough of it. Like, we can't feel bad. We can't have a bad day. Well, count your blessings. One day they're going to be out of the house. And you're like, so when the person that introduced mindfulness, I love what she said. She said, who told you mindfulness has anything to do with being Zen? It has nothing to do with that. It is nothing but bringing consciousness to a feeling or a thought without judgment. And I love that, because when I brought the consciousness to the moment when I am, crazy Arab mama, and I'm thinking to my head, I look ridiculous. No wonder the child is not listening and almost laughing.
Kids do laugh at me, and then you rage further, right? You're like,
exactly right. And that's when I'm saying, when I bring that consciousness piece, and to even take it deeper, I realize it's because of deep beliefs that may not have necessarily been mine. Because I think if a child doesn't do what I want because they should have, well, then they're disrespecting me. Are they really disrespecting you? Are they just having a reaction? What's going on in their world? What's their temperament? And then on and on and on and on. So it's been an unbelievable segue, I guess, to a lot of things. But I'm very curious, because I'm sensing in a lot of professionals, but I'm not sure if they can articulate it as mindfulness. So I'm curious, with you, your business partners, your colleagues, is it articulated as such?
In work here, I don't know that it comes up as often as it should. I'm going to pick on a generational divide among some people here on what the value. I mean, I think it to them feels a little bit like, the hippies of the day, and
That's a good
like,
point.
Right.
Good
and
point.
So they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you can see
put your head down, work hard, get the Rolex, and retire.
Work, and everything's going to work out. And just like, what are you even talking about with all this foo-foo stuff? But there's a lot. I mean, there's obviously a lot of research out there on it, and I think that, I don't know what generation, but there, the younger you get, the more people are looking after their wellness in ways that involve their mindset as well. Right.
So we can't continue the way we've been doing.
People are proactively seeing therapists now, right? It's not because they have a mental health issue. They don't want a mental health issue.
It's not a taboo anymore. It's part of self-care.
It's part of self-care. And I mean, I have one, and I just talk to her because it's the best person for me to just kind of unload onto.
Exactly right.
Then she helps me check myself, and I go, and and
you have a lot of demands on you as a mom, as a daughter, as a wife, and every other role we have in society. And I think sometimes even more so on women, because our roles have changed so significantly. Last topic of discussion, just respectful of your time, retirement. A couple of things. One of the greatest things I ever heard, and I'm wondering as to your opinion of it, is wealthy people don't save, they invest. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think two things. So yeah, wealthy people invest. They invest in their businesses, they invest in themselves, they
Yeah.
invest in their families, they invest in so many different things.
Forget that we are our biggest assets.
We are our biggest assets. Tell people that all the time.
We,
Protect yourself and your ability to bring in the income. The biggest
absolutely.
assumption I make in a financial plan is that there's income coming in the door.
That's a pretty good assumption. It's pretty important too.
Exactly. But a lot of people don't understand what happens to their income if they're unable to work for some reason. It happened to you if your income goes to zero? Like most of us are in big trouble. But anyway, totally off
That's,
topic.
no, that's exactly right. I had a different upbringing in that I was introduced to travel very early. The idea of retirement for me is a little bit backwards. I've taken mini breaks throughout my careers and my life up until now, that when I travel again, that's fantastic, but our kids are a little bit young, but we're going to do it again. My point is, everybody has this golden 65. When I'm 65, I will live my life. What do you think about the idea of a mini retirement?
I think for some people it will work and some people it won't.
Why?
Well, because not everybody has built a foundation that would allow them to do that. And so I guess, coming back to the topic at hand, being mindful,
Yes.
if you want to have that capacity to be able to do, take these sabbaticals, if you will, you have to have a plan in place to allow you to do it.
We can change a mindset, shifting when retirement can happen. But to do that, you were saying conscious decisions have to be made.
Conscious decisions. Yeah. And so I have a lot of clients that planning towards what they call FIRE, which is financial independence, retire early. And so they're just like, I'm going to live a lifestyle that is like as if I just started in my career and I never made any more money than my starting point. And as I make more money, I'm just going to stash and stash and stash it. So perhaps by the time I'm 45, I'm able to retire. And
so what does that plan look like? What would it entail? Being below your means?
Yes. You have to be willing to bring your lifestyle needs down significantly. So you and I have talked about travel. You and I have talked about I value personally living a life and enjoying life while knowing that I am saving for an eventual retirement. I don't have any plans on retiring at 45 or feeling like I've amassed enough that I could retire at 45. I don't even know what I would do. However, for these specific people, their values align around I would rather limit myself so that when I hit 45, I know that I can retire. Every day that I work thereafter, I can just go spend that money. If I want to take a year off, I take a year off. It involves some very strict budgeting. I'm going to use the word budget here because I'm so sorry. I said I didn't like budget.
I'm completely kidding.
But,
it has its place.
It has to be for you. And so to your point, if you said I want to cool down next year, then you probably made some conscious decisions to make sure that your lifestyle and your children's lifestyle and your goals and ambitions and your values around spending were not going to be impacted by you doing it.
And having done that, I didn't actually need as much as I intellectually thought I needed to live in Spain for 8 months when I was 22 years old. If you are creative, like when I went to Spain for that amount of time, I ended up living with a family. I'd pay rent, but I drive the kids around. So it was, subsidized. What I'm saying is we've become so linear in our thinking because I believe just life has gotten so complicated. But there's no better time to live than today. The amount of choices, resources. I mean, even specifically for us as women.
Exactly. No, I totally agree with you. You do have to be creative and you do have to think differently. If you want to live a different life, you think about it differently. Now, what I also find really interesting though, a lot of us at our age, when we're busy and have our young kids, we're like, things get real sometimes. Yeah. We all we can think about is the day that we can wake up and just kind of do whatever we want, make whatever choices we want to make and just do whatever we want. When you get to an older stage, there are some people who just can't wait to retire because they hate what they do for a living, right? They're in a job, not a career. Anyone who's in their chosen career that enjoys what they do, I really don't want to stop, right? Talk about wealthy people. They don't save, they invest. They also usually don't have any plan to retire.
Justine, you've given me some incredible insights. Just to wrap up, give me your 3 takeaways for a happy, mindful, conscious living life.
Know what you want, build the plan around it, and check in every once in a while, and you'll just feel confident in your path forward. And that is to do with money, but it's to do with parenting, it's to do with travel. It's just
Love
the
it.
things that you want, build the plan around how you're going to get it.
How can people reach you?
And if you know what, you just Google my name, you'll find anything you need about me. Email me, you can call my office, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or our company, Zavitz Insurance and Wealth. We have a Facebook page and the Instagram page and the website, everything else. So
I will make sure to link it below in the video for everyone to follow.
thanks for having me on here. It's been
Thank you.
so wonderful.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Have a good one, Nesreen. Good to
Have
see
a
you.
wonderful day.